They say 13's an unlucky number. Hotels skip it, elevators hide it, and sailors once refused to sail on the 13th day of the month. But what if the real curse wasn't 13 at all? What if the number to fear was 10? Some addresses are doomed before the ink dries. A house no one stays in for long. A door that always seems to open even when it's locked. And behind it, ordinary life. Teacups, ration books, polite neighbors. Nothing out of place until you start to smell the walls. Welcome to the House of Six. Tonight's episode is Midnight Murders and the Man at Number 10. So, welcome to the House of Six. I'm Jen.
I'm Jared.
New house, new us.
New house, anyway.
On this podcast, each week, I explore the history of crime and mystery, and Jared refuses to visit any of these places with me.
I listen, though. Step one.
So, yeah. Today is our 13th episode.
Lucky 13.
It is a very lucky 13. Really excited about that. I have been watching our stats on YouTube and Spotify, and we don't have very many viewers. It's growing a little bit, so we finally told all of our friends and family. We came out of the podcast closet and told people that we know. We were talking to strangers before then. And so viewership has had a little uptick. But a really interesting thing is that in the stats, it tells you where people listen from. Mm-hmm. And we have people from the UK, Ireland, Australia. There are 4 people that have listened to us in Australia. Bulgaria.
Okay.
Singapore.
Okay.
There's one more. I don't remember. Sorry.
This is probably like somewhere in the middle of Iowa, and it's just routers that are making it look like it's somewhere interesting, right? Sorry, no offense, Iowa.
I think that's only, I can't see from where in the United States people are listening from.
Oh, really?
Only that it's from the United States. There are a lot of listeners from the United States.
Yeah.
But I thought that the international ones were fun.
Yeah. That's cool. Sorry, my energy level's got to come up. Like you said, it's been a few weeks since we've done this.
Oh my gosh. We bought a 120-year-old house, and it doesn't need remodeling in the traditional sense because it was recently, like 25 years ago, it was remodeled with all the important things, the guts of the house. But we're trying to make it
Sixified.
Is that what the roof was? We got a new roof. We also painted the outside, and in addition to all the little things we've done inside. So it's been a exhausting month.
Yeah.
For sure. Moving when you're in your 40s, 50s, is harder than it was when I moved a lot when I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And also a lot more furniture.
Yeah. Too old for this shit.
Hopefully this is the last time we move. I want this to be my forever house. I was waiting for that car to go
I know.
by. We live on a main street. We moved to a little town, very little town in Georgia. We were closer to Atlanta, and now we are not. And we live in a historic district on a very main street. And the locals like to speed past our 25-mile-per-hour zone in front of our house. They like to go 60 miles per hour.
It's only negative so far. There'll be a podcast about my arrest at one point.
You have to run for mayor, so I don't think you can get arrested.
Okay.
It's a whole different story.
Yeah.
We can talk about that later. But tonight, we are going to talk about John Christie. I always like to ask this. Have you ever heard of John Christie?
Could you tell by the look on my face when you said the name? And I was like, shit. Ooh. Yeah, no.
In any event, John Christie, a very unremarkable man, very polite, helpful, invisible in all the right ways, and also extremely dangerous. Because behind the walls of number 10 Rillington Place, the quiet man next door was collecting secrets. And by secrets, I mean bodies.
Okay.
I'm going to need you to react when I make pauses. Like, the pauses are for you. That's just imagine me, every time I pause, I'm like, go. Let's go back. We are going to go back to London again, except this time, instead of 1888, we are going back to 1949.
Okay.
The war was over, number 2, but peace had not returned quite yet. Bomb craters still scarred the streets. Ration books ruled the kitchen, and the optimism of victory had turned into exhaustion. People were over this shit. Nearly every family had lost someone, a son, a father, a neighbor who went off in uniform and either came back different or not at all. London probably was still pretty smelly from coal smoke. There were rows of brick terraces that sat in various states of disrepair, patched and propped up like people were living inside of them. The city was definitely just surviving. It was not thriving. Post-war Britain was defined by politeness and quiet suffering. Everyone was supposed to move on, rebuild, forget, and get back to normal. I think this is where that British stiff upper lip comes in. I'm going to have to look more into that and what that actually means. I think it was just like serious. Anyways, but normal did not mean happy. It meant endurance. Men came home from war half broken, half ignored. They were told to be grateful and to get on with it. Women who'd spent years running factories and surviving bombings were expected to return back to the kitchen like the world hadn't changed. I have opinions on this. I mean, they expected us to keep the world going while the men were off at war. And then we were just supposed to go back to barefoot and having babies. In any event, it was a society built on silence, and silence is the perfect cover for monsters.
It is. It is? It is.
It is. Housing was scarce, so large homes were divided into cramped flats. Entire families might share one floor with strangers above and below them. The post-war rooms to let culture created a strange intimacy. Everyone lived close together, but no one truly knew each other. You'd hear your neighbor's kettle whistle, smell their Sunday roast, maybe even hear an argument through the wall, but you did not interfere, not in post-war Britain. There was an unspoken rule of don't pry. Keep your head down, respect authority, and assume the best of anyone in uniform or a suit. And this wasn't just a social courtesy, it was survival. The country had been under martial discipline for nearly a decade. Obedience was a muscle memory, and that's how men like John Christie thrived. Christie was a war veteran. He'd served in World War I, been injured in a gas attack, and came home with lasting damage, physical, psychological, and deeply personal. He spoke softly, moved carefully, and carried himself with a meek, almost fragile politeness that made people trust him. He fit the image of the respectable working man. He was a clerk, a husband, and a man doing his bit to get by. Neighbors saw someone dependable and harmless, and in post-war Britain, that was enough to make him invisible. But there's something else about this period, this veneer of moral order covering a nation that didn't want to face its own trauma. Crime was rising, but people called it unfortunate. Poverty was everywhere, and the press called it transition. There was a cultural obsession with respectability, the belief that good manners could excuse anything. I'm going somewhere with all this.
Okay.
Okay? This is all context. I'm not bringing it up for nothing.
Yep.
just so you know. Notting Hill, which is super trendy today, before that, it was a poor neighborhood crowded with families displaced by war. Each house was subdivided again and again, where you'd have a couple on the ground floor, a single man upstairs, a widow in the attic. Rent was super cheap, space was super tight, and privacy was super not there.
Yeah.
Very non-existent.
If I'm renting some place in the attic, it better be cheap.
Yeah.
But again, this is what they had.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine the walls were pretty thin because these houses were divided. These were not like insulated walls. These were like probably paper thin. So if you smelled something strange, you probably assumed it was the poor plumbing. If you heard something odd, that's the neighbors. And if somebody disappeared, well, people move all the time. She went to California. She became an actress. Nobody ever saw her on TV. She wasn't a good actress.
Got it all figured out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know what happens.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That combination of distrust of confrontation, blind faith in authority, social fatigue, of course, John Christie had everything he needed because he was not charismatic. He wasn't even clever. He just understood how to hide in plain sight. He offered to fix things. He was very calm and collected, almost paternal. He projected the one quality post-war Britain worshipped the most, and that was respectability.
He knew the way to people's hearts. Literally.
So, what do you think's going to happen?
Oh, people die? He's a bad guy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we wouldn't be talking about him if he was a good guy. We talk about some good guys. We talked about Amelia Earhart. She was a great gal. Mm-hmm. Pausing for drinks. We don't normally drink on this podcast. I have a cat mug. It looks just like my cat. Her name's Cat.
It is. Why do you need a name when you just call it Cat and it answers?
That's her name.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's her name. It's
her name.
It's her name. I don't make the rules. I make the rules. That's all my historical context.
Okay.
I kept this one short because I didn't have anybody like Christopher Columbus or Thomas Edison to go off on. So, I mean, I guess I could go off on Winston Churchill, but he was also like a war hero and everybody loved him. And I think he's still, flaws and all, he's still the good guy. So
okay.
I didn't have any. There's only one bad guy in the story.
Okay.
We know who did it. Let's get into the timeline.
1949.
We got to go back a little bit before that, only because to tell the whole timeline. So, before number 10 became famous, this is just John. It's just a small, nervous boy from Halifax, bringing up Halifax for the second time, or technically Nova Scotia for the second time in this podcast. Johnny Boy, was a small, nervous boy from Halifax, born in 1899 to a strict and joyless family. I love to hear that. That can't go anywhere but up. His father was a carpenter, distant, intimidating. His mother was loving, but very smothering, the kind of affection that came with control. There's a pattern with these guys. It's always the mother. Watch yourselves, lady. Classmates later described him as quiet and bookish, the sort of boy who kept to himself and followed the rules to the letter. He was a good student, especially in math, and nothing about him suggested what was coming. In any event, when his grandfather died, young John was taken to see the body, which is not uncommon at the time or for this situation. But instead of fear, he felt fascination. He would later describe that moment as the first time he realized death held power. And that's an interesting story and all of those things, but this account is not substantiated and was notated after his death. There's no sign that Christie showed up any early fascination with death, no cruelty, no warning signs. I only bring this up because I like to talk about how these sort of situations are sensationalized, and it really irks me.
Right.
And I like to make note of them because you might hear them in other podcasts. Not their fault necessarily, because this is a documented retelling of how he was, but it was later. Just note. What stands out is not what he did, but what he didn't do. All in all, John did not rebel, he didn't argue, and he did not stand out. He basically was able to survive by blending in. It's a running theme here with this guy. Christie was intelligent but socially awkward, a quiet, reserved boy, often teased for his high-pitched voice and nervous manner. I feel sad for him, only right this second, because nobody likes to be made fun of, and kids are really mean.
It was probably me as a teenager.
Did you have a high-pitched voice?
I don't remember having a deep voice.
You do now.
I know.
The testosterone kicked in?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like kids are mean.
Yeah.
Kids were really mean to me when I was little. I was very, very short and very, very skinny. I was a very diminutive person. Like skinny to the extreme.
I wasn't picked on, but
I didn't like it. I did not like kids growing up. Like, I did not enjoy. That sounds bad, because I did not enjoy my childhood. I didn't like my school years, like in school.
yeah.
I didn't like
and
school.
I've told
at
you
all.
I did. So.
Yeah, well, some of us remember our childhoods differently.
Yeah.
All this to say is that John did not fit in, and classmates remembered him as someone who preferred order to chaos and solitude to company. Later in life, he would claim that injuries from the war left him impotent, a story that may have been true or just useful. It's a strange thing to tell people.
What do you mean?
Well, I think that most men, and look, I get it that some men have problems. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But, like, why would you... He was, like, very free with, like, talking about how
I mean,
impotent
that
he
makes no
was.
sense, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't perform.
Yeah, that's something if you bring up during normal casual conversation, that's kind of odd.
I mean it in the sense that, like, that's what he told the police and things like that.
Oh.
Like, I can see, like, telling a doctor that. You should tell a doctor
Should tell
that.
a doctor that.
Those are important conversations. to
Or
have
as
with
he's
your
getting
doctor.
handcuffed, hey, I can't get it up.
That's also not the time to tell that story. So, anyways, in 1916, at 17, Christie enlisted in the British Army. That seems a little early, 17. I figure you have to be 18 to enlist, but...
No, probably not then, though, right?
I mean, it was going into the First World War. Maybe they needed the men.
Maybe.
I don't know. Here's a deal where, as an American, the United States didn't really get involved in these wars until later on, and then just, went all
Right.
fuck shit up immediately. But I'm not good at this part of history where I don't really know at what stage the war was in and what was going on.
Yeah, that's where we need the 23-year-old.
This would be him.
Yep.
Anyways, he served as a signalman, which I don't know what that is. I assumed he signaled.
I hope he did.
And he's a man. It was on the Western Front, where mustard gas attacks were a daily terror. In 1918, 2 years later, he was hospitalized after a mustard gas attack. Medical records note throat and eye injuries from gas exposure, but nothing permanent. However, later Christie would tell people the attack left him blind and mute for months, even years. That's really weird because mustard gas is pretty well documented in the effects it has on the human body, and there's absolutely no evidence of that. The story lingered. And it became one of his favorite shields, a way to explain his frailty, his failures, and eventually his crimes. Side note on mustard gas, because I was like, I don't know a whole lot about it, except that I knew that it was like a super deadly chemical.
Yep.
Mustard gas is not a gas at all. It is an oily, blistering liquid aerosol officially called sulfur mustard. It causes chemical burns, blindness, temporary, respiratory failure, and long-term genetic damage.
Impotence?
It doesn't kill quickly. It maims, blinds, and suffocates slowly if allowed to
It's
continued
nasty.
exposure.
I don't know a whole lot about it, but it's nasty stuff.
After its horrific use in World War I, including at Arras, where Christie was injured, mustard gas became one of the first weapons banned by global agreement. The 1925 Geneva Protocol prohibited the use of chemical and biological weapons in war. And then in 1993, the Chemical Weapons Convention closed all the loopholes, not just the use, but the development, production, stockpiling, transfer, and use of chemical weapons was banned. Interestingly, or grossly enough, chemical weapons are banned in war, but we still use them policing our streets in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Tear gas, rubber bullets, those type of things, which are, well, tear gas is chemical weapon. You can't use tear gas in war, but you can use it in protests and riots. I'm not going to talk about politics because that's not about that. I mean, it is a political statement. It's not a recent political statement. It's just a general political statement that I can't believe that we call it a war crime to use chemical weapons on citizens of other countries in war, but not our own citizens.
Yep.
I can see how important it is to have something deterrence to use during civil unrest. I just thought it was an interesting
It is.
thing.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, you knew we used tear gas.
Oh, yes. I'm just, in
Not
terms
we.
of,
Never used tear gas.
No, all of the fact that it's banned in other scenarios.
It's considered a war crime.
Yeah.
We got to get back to it. John Christie. After the war, he returned to civilian life, the quiet, polite clerk with sad eyes and trembling hand. He got a job as a postman and then a clerk, then a warehouse worker, never staying long enough, always moving when things got complicated. And they got complicated often because between 1921 and 1933, Christie had at least 7 known convictions. Okay. 1921, theft of postal orders. He was fined. 1923, a violent assault on a woman. So he spent 6 months in prison. 1924, theft from his employer. 1929, theft of a car. That's grand theft auto right there. 1933, malicious wounding. He hit a coworker with a cricket bat. So he went to jail for 6 months. And the thing, I found this interesting because they talked about how he followed the rules. And I was like, well, that is a lot of non-rule following right there.
Yeah.
I'm confused. So I had to do a little bit of research and found that Christie was not a rebel or a thug. He did like structure and he did like rules. He just didn't like rules that applied to him. He was not wild. He was very deliberate. He followed every rule of appearance while quietly breaking the ones that mattered to him.
Okay.
But despite the criminal record, he managed to marry Ethel Waddington. That is the most British name I've ever heard. Sorry for that accent. That was probably offensive. And Ethel Waddington, that's how you have to say it, was a soft-spoken woman from Sheffield. She was kind, patient, and lonely, which is probably everything Christie needed her to be. I mean, he would not be going out and finding some vivacious, rambunctious, buxom blonde. I don't know why I did that.
It's a lot
but anyways,
of adjectives.
Yep. Their marriage was not warm. Neighbors remembered them as polite, distant, almost formal.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting.
Delightful.
Whew. I bet their pillow talk was riveting. Christie's impotence was a quiet constant between them. They probably did not speak on it often, and they probably didn't have a lot of alone time. sexy time. Their flat was neat, their manners restrained, and nothing about them invited curiosity. Christie, in particular, was remembered as tidy, soft-spoken, the sort of man who seemed to take pride in order and appearances. And to the people of Rillington Place, he seemed absolutely harmless. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, pretty sure it wasn't.
By the early 1940s, Britain was, of course, at war again. London was chaos in uniform. I cannot imagine what London was like at this point in time, because just watching documentaries,
Right.
the World War II in color
Yeah.
is an absolutely phenomenal documentary, although it is like 42 parts, so get ready for a marathon. And also books that I have read, even historical fiction, which I'm a big fan of, what London went through, and just knowing that every night they had to close blackout curtains where
Right.
not a speck of light could
Right.
show. Like, you could get fined if you
Right.
had any light showing from your home. The air raids, the sirens, the bombings.
Yeah.
I know a lot
They're
of people
crazy.
died
They're
in
crazy.
London
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
And they would go and hide in like sewers, I think, to stay safe. I mean, obviously cellars, but I don't know how many cellars were in London. They would
Right.
have to find, I guess, bomb shelters. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. In any event, the Blitz had torn holes into whole streets, and the police were desperate for men. And that is how John Christie, a man with a criminal record of theft and assault, ended up wearing a badge. He served as a War Reserve constable for the Metropolitan Police for several years, patrolling during blackouts and air raids. Neighbors later said he wore the uniform proudly. For Christie, it offered something he didn't have before, which was authority, and probably some illusion of control. It probably made him feel very powerful.
Yeah.
They let him be a cop.
After all that.
He spent over a year in jail.
Yep.
He whacked somebody upside the head with a cricket bat.
Yep.
And he stole a car.
He knows how to identify a criminal.
He's the criminal.
Oh,
He
sorry.
looked in the mirror and he was like,
Right.
oh, there you are.
Yeah.
That was funny. When World War II began, John Christie stayed in London working as a clerk for the Harborough Gas Company. The Blitz turned the city into a maze of sirens and rubble. People died, vanished, simply moved without warning. And in that kind of chaos, absence became ordinary. Christie and Ethel had already settled into the ground floor flat at number 10 Rillington Place in Notting Hill. The house was old, damp, and subdivided into small tenements, a mix of families, widows, and new arrivals who rarely stayed very long. Everyone lived close enough to hear each other's kettles, not close enough to ask questions. For most of the 1940s, John and Ethel Christie didn't actually even live together. When the war began, Ethel left London and returned to Sheffield to stay with her relatives. I mean, fair. It was a bad time. It was a crappy time.
Yeah.
She said she didn't feel safe in the city during the bombings. Christie later described it as a temporary separation. Letters between them show that they stayed in touch, but their visits were very rare. In London, Christie kept the ground floor flat at 10 Rillington Place on his own. That quiet, empty home suited him very well. Privacy, loneliness. To his neighbors, Christie was the polite man downstairs, a war veteran who offered medical advice, fixed a leaky pipe, or spoke softly about ration coupons. He was quiet, tidy, and helpful, the kind of man that people just trusted, especially women who needed something. Okay.
This is the shit.
This is the shit.
Shit, okay.
Okay. The first known murder happened in August of 1943. During the last years of World War II, London was recovering from the Blitz, the chaos, the rationing, displacement. It made it very easy for people to vanish easily. And the first victim was Ruth Fierst. a 21-year-old Austrian woman who had come to Britain as a refugee. She worked as a nurse and sometimes as a sex worker for survival. It was a tough time. We're not judging here for that. Christie met her while he was serving as a war reserve constable. He later told police that she'd come back to his flat for a bit of fun. What happened next came from Christie's own statement, and it's worth remembering that he was a liar. So take what you will out of this, but all we have are his own words of what happened. He claimed they began having intimacy and she became faint. And so he strangled her in the heat of the moment.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what he meant by became faint, but even if she fell asleep, I don't think that's cause for strangulation.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Have you ever thought that if somebody fell asleep on you?
I was going to go there, but I wasn't going to joke. I wasn't going to. I was going to leave the joke alone. I was going to leave the obvious T-ball joke right there, just right there. Yeah. I didn't. Yeah.
I have to talk about it.
I hope we can leave this in the podcast, and I'll live with it. No, I did not feel like strangling that person at the time.
Look, here's the thing. We've been married for a while. 14 years a couple days ago, as a matter of fact, even though we both forgot about it because there's so much been going on.
Yeah.
We bought ourselves a house for our anniversary, I guess. But in any event, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
And to be fair, we went out one night with some friends and had a very long night of drinking.
Late night.
We Ubered home. Look, one could say that somebody that drunk has no business doing anything.
Yeah.
And so I fell asleep.
You did.
Because I was wasted.
It was a good story. It was a pretty good story, actually.
It's like 10 years ago.
No, it was way longer than that.
Was it? I don't know.
It was long, way longer
time.
than that. So, yeah.
It was a long time ago. And I was wasted and I fell asleep.
Yeah.
And I did not get strangled because that's what crazy people do.
Nope. I think I probably laughed.
I don't know if you did. I don't know.
Yeah.
It happens. Look. I don't know where I was in the story. Oh, okay. So Christie said he hid her body afterwards under the floorboards in the living room. Now, this is years later after he got caught, and he wasn't caught for this murder.
Right.
Spoiler, he gets away with it,
Right.
keeps on criming. But when the police did go to look under the floorboards, she wasn't there.
Oh, okay.
All right. Whatever the circumstances, I would call this a clean murder. It was murder. And that killing marked a shift in Christie's life and possibly his psychology. He discovered that in death, he could get what he could not sustain in life. He had control, silence, and obedience. There is no evidence that he killed anybody directly after this, but that moment, that act was just the beginning. Christie continued working and living as if nothing happened. He kept up his polite routines, had neighbors over for tea, and continued to serve as a police reservist for a time. The next murder came a little over a year later in October of 1944. This woman's name was Muriel Eady, a co-worker from the Harborough Gas Company. Muriel suffered from chronic sinus problems.
Okay.
Like she had a stuffy nose all the time.
You should have runny nose all the time.
Oh, it could be the...
Right.
Yeah. Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't know medical things.
Yeah.
Anyways, Christie, being the helpful neighbor, because of course, offered to treat her with a special home remedy that he devised.
I bet he did.
According to his later confession, what does that mean?
Nothing.
Were you being dirty?
Yeah,
Were you
I was.
being a dirty
I was,
bird?
yeah.
Alrighty. His home remedy.
Got my home remedy for you.
Oh, no.
He didn't have a
Oh,
home
no.
remedy. His needle was broken.
And you don't mean, you mean it's, oh, I see what you did there. Clink. According to his later confession, he invited her to his flat, told her to inhale from a jar containing medicated gas.
Who the hell does this? Come on.
Muriel. And when she began to lose consciousness, he strangled her.
I made some fresh mentholatum for you.
Mentholatum.
You sniff it out of
You
this
are
jar.
the only human being on the planet that uses the word mentholatum.
Yeah.
It's Vicks Vapor Rub.
Yeah. It's my grandmother and my dad's fault.
Mentholatum.
Yep.
That's what I say when because he's like, he uses it every night. It's
I do not. I'm not that
ridiculous.
old.
He uses
You
it
asked me for
every
it the other
other
night. You asked me for it the other night, and I hadn't even used it. And then when you got it out, I was like, good idea.
You just don't. In any event, he's like, do you want some mentholatum? And I'm like, mentholatum, because it's such a ridiculous word to
It
use.
is.
It's 2025.
Yeah. I grew up on it.
It's
My
Vicks.
dad used it like it was life itself. Anyway. Vicks it is.
You're never going to say Vicks. It's not what he does. So he strangled, and it's worth noting that he strangled these women with pieces of his clothing, like
Oh, okay.
a scarf or a tie.
Okay. I was wondering where, honestly, I was curious what the hell you were going to say. What did he strangle them with?
Yeah.
Yeah. Clothing, tame. Okay.
It's something probably
That was going to be something
on
just
hand. I mean,
shit.
he invited these women over. He probably had a tie on, and he
Yeah.
just whipped it off, and
Okay, yeah, that's what he did.
you know. He buried her body in the small garden behind number 10, which I will remind you was a shared space. He was not alone in this garden, presumably. Her remains would be found with a second set, which are assumed to be Ruth's, after the police could not find her under the floorboards. They found her 2 bodies in the garden.
Okay. Little compost.
These 2 women, Fierst and Edie, are considered his earliest confirmed victims. Interestingly enough, Christie's use of gas wasn't random. He worked for a gas company and understood how to manipulate the flow and mixture. He also used the story to sound scientific, compassionate, and even trustworthy. I don't know why you would trust a guy that knows about gas, but Muriel thought she was being treated by a man who knew what he was doing. He didn't.
Yeah. Muriel was a little naive.
I mean, I think a lot of people in this time period were naive. And this goes back to what I was talking about in the historical context, in that if you seemed respectable, people trusted you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it
Enough to
really,
smell gas out of a jar.
That feels extreme. I think if somebody was like, I have a home remedy, here, sniff this clear jar, I'd be like, no.
What's in it?
Do you know I don't know why this made me think of it, but there's a woman, this was a story a couple years ago, there's a woman that sold jars of her own farts.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't like to use
That's
that
a
word.
genius,
but, like,
a genius entrepreneurial thing.
I don't know if you'd call that entrepreneurial.
First of all, I should say the word right, entrepreneurial. I
That's
don't
what
know
you
if
said.
I did I?
That's what you said.
It's there's a lot of not so smart people out there that would buy these things.
I don't know if they're smart or just really weird, because they knowingly brought a jar of. First of all, is she really doing that into the jar?
Right. What if you got it though and you opened it up and you went, it worked. holy hell.
I knew better than to continue
Yeah,
taking a
you
drink
did.
when I
You
know
did.
you're about to say
Yeah.
something completely absurd.
Oh, this was worth the money.
Does it stay in the jar that long?
I'm just saying, what if it did?
I'm gonna have to stop and chat GPT this.
No,
Be
it's
back in a
not
minute.
going to. It's not going to.
If I in a jar, how long
will it last capped
if I cap it. This is why ChatGPT was invented, right here. Let's unpack this with a mix of science. Short term, if you cap it tightly, the smell can linger for a few days to a few weeks before dissipating.
There you go. If you got express shipping,
you're expelling nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, methane, and trace sulfur compounds. Those are all the stinkies part of it.
Stinkies, I guess.
And sulfur compounds are volatile, but can stick to the inside of the glass in the jar for a while.
That's gross. So really, if you fart in a jar and you express ship this thing, overnight fart in a jar, that's your next thing.
The smell will weaken drastically within 1 to 2 months of a well-sealed jar.
There you go. So, you can can vegetables. You can can a fart.
This is science.
Right.
Well, if you vacuum seal it, will it suck out the fart?
I don't know. Your ChatGPT is ruined.
Seal it, will it suck out the fart? So stupid. If you vacuum seal a fart, you're trying to preserve something that exists as a gas mixture dispersed into air, but a vacuum sealer's job is to remove the air.
Is it remove the air? Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is just science.
But when you can vegetables, you don't vacuum seal, you boil them.
Which vacuum seals it?
You're right, so it would still suck out the air.
It pulls out the air.
Yeah.
It's a way of vacuum sealing.
So really, you're just going to have to take your chances and overnight this package.
You have to seal it really well.
Overnight this stink box.
Maybe if you did like a wax seal.
Yeah.
Like, what's that whiskey that wax seals at Maker's Mark?
Yeah, Maker's Mark.
You could.
And that would add it, and that would be a really pretty label. Yeah.
It would be nice.
Yeah.
It's a very pretty part.
It is.
And on the topic of me ruining my ChatGPT, I'd like you to know that it's already very ruined with all of the searches that I do for this podcast.
That was fun.
After those two murders, there's a long gap in the record. Between 1944 and 1949, no additional victims have been confirmed. Some historians believe he may have killed during that time and suggest that particularly when Ethel returned to live with him in 1948, that he may have crimed a little bit more, but we have no hard evidence of that, and we don't sensationalize here. There is enough bullshit with this guy without adding to it, frankly. Christie himself hinted at more deaths, but his confessions were inconsistent and self-serving, and again, a liar. What we do know is that by the end of the 1940s, number 10 Rillington Place already held the buried remains of at least 2 women, and its owner, quiet, polite, respectable John Christie, was preparing to kill again. This motherfucker. By 1949, life at number 10 Rillington Place looked ordinary again. Ethel was back. Rationing had eased, and post-war London was trying to feel civilized again. But behind the Christie's front door, the quiet wasn't peace. This is calculation. That same year, a young couple moved into the top floor flat above them. Their names were Timothy and Beryl Evans. I think that's a very interesting historic name for a woman. Beryl. 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 Beryl?
That is odd.
I don't know. I've seen it before in writing. I've never heard it. I've like books.
Yeah.
Literature.
Yes.
Yes. Tim was 24, a van driver with limited education and a tendency to exaggerate his own success. That is important. Beryl was 19, lively, sharp-tongued, juggling housework and their new baby, Geraldine. Neighbors described them as noisy, sometimes quarrelsome, but loving in between. They were poor, like most tenants of Rillington Place. Money was tight, tempers were short, and the walls were thin for everyone to hear everything. Christie, because of course, befriended them almost immediately. He liked being seen as the wise, helpful neighbor, the man who knew how to fix things. He offered Beryl tea and medical advice. He worked for a gas company. Medical advice. He chatted with Tim about work and family. Christie, to them, had authority. He was the older man. He was a war veteran. He spoke gently and confidently. And Tim Evans, who was insecure and eager for approval, seemed to look up to him. In late 1949, Beryl became pregnant again. She was terrified. They could not afford another child. They were already very poor. Tim said they talked about doing something about it. And Christie offered to help. Said he knew how. He works for a gas company. I'm just going to keep saying that. He told them he'd been a medical man. I don't know why you'd use that term. That he could take care of it safely, no hospital needed. What happens next depends on whose story you read and which version of Christie was written down at the time. But the evidence shows sometime in November of 1949, Beryl Evans was killed inside the flat at number 10. Her body was found weeks later, hidden in the wash house at the back of the garden. Baby Geraldine was discovered strangled in the same building. I'm not going to talk any more about details because it's unnecessary for this. Timothy Evans panicked and inconsistently confessed, retracted the confession, confessed again. His first statements blamed Christie, saying the man downstairs offered to help and that, quote unquote, something went wrong. But when police pressed him, Evans changed his story, taking full responsibility for both deaths.
Okay.
Now, it is very easy to criticize Evans in this case for those contradictions, but the context really matters here. He had a low IQ, he could barely read, and he was questioned for hours without a lawyer.
Sure.
And
just he had a play. He had somebody he could blame.
He did, but he was just a man that didn't know what to do. And studies have shown that when people are questioned this way for hours and hours, they will confess.
You cave.
You cave because you just want it to go away.
Yep.
Even educated people do this. Although I will stop here and say, get a lawyer. Don't talk to the police without a lawyer. And I respect the police. There are a lot of them that are great men out there doing good work. But you get a lawyer.
Oh, it's a tactic. Regardless of being good cop, bad cop, it's a tactic.
Get a lawyer.
Right.
Do not talk to the cops without a lawyer. Police found what looked like motives: struggling marriage, dead wife, dead child, financial situations, new baby on the way. That's just recipe for disaster there. On the other side, Christie, with his calm demeanor, quiet authority, he played the part of the helpful witness. Oh my gosh, officer, I just can't believe this happened. My goodness. He told police that Evans had confessed to him that Beryl's death was a tragic domestic matter. And they believe him.
Yep.
Full stop. Investigation over.
Yeah, he's a cop.
It ended there.
Yep.
Except it didn't. Christie's testimony was the backbone of the prosecution's case. Evans was tried for the murder of his daughter. Under British law, the Crown could have him charged with either or both murders, but prosecutors typically chose one count when they believed it was the strongest, most straightforward case, especially in capital trials where conviction meant execution. Evans was tried for just one murder, his baby daughter's. The prosecution said it was simpler, clearer, easier to prove, and most importantly, killing a child left no room for sympathy. They used the wife's death as background, not as a separate charge. If the jury believed he killed his daughter, they assumed he killed the wife too.
Yeah, right.
And it worked.
Yeah.
They sent him to the gallows.
Yeah.
The jury didn't need to deliberate long. He was convicted and hanged at Pentonville Prison in March 1950, and he maintained his innocence until his very end.
Okay.
3 years later, when police returned to Rillington Place and began uncovering bodies, they realized the unimaginable. The man whose testimony had convicted Timothy Evans was a serial killer. Christie had not only killed Beryl Evans, he had likely killed the baby too, then watched an innocent man take the blame.
Yep.
This discovery sparked national outrage. It forced the British public to confirm what they didn't want to believe: that respectability could lie, that institutions could fail, and that the justice system could hang the wrong man. In 1966, 16 years after Evans' execution, a formal inquiry finally declared him innocent. He was granted a royal pardon posthumously. By then, the damage was irreversible. A young mother and her child were dead, an innocent man was dead, and the real killer had lived in that same flat for years afterwards, quietly, politely, right downstairs from the next set of victims. That's bad. Anyways, I told this story in a little bit different order because I'm not going linear. So we're going to go back just a little bit. I jumped all the way up to 1966 talking about the Evans situation, but I'd like to go back a little bit to 1952. John Christie was running out of lies to hide behind. Ethel was home. The garden was sealed under fresh soil, and London was quietly moving into its post-war rebuild. To the neighbors, the Christies looked stable, two middle-aged people who kept to themselves and never made trouble. But Ethel's letters to her family had slowed, and by 1952, they stopped completely. When police finally searched the flat months later, they found her body under the floorboards of the parlor wrapped in a blanket. Christie admitted he had killed her that December. He claimed it was a mercy killing. She was ill, he said, and he couldn't bear to see her suffer. Mm-hmm. This is a lie. I'm just going to cut to the chase. There is no record of illness, no medicine in the house. This man did not have mercy. Her death freed him from the last person who might have noticed what was really happening inside that flat. Over the next few months, Christie rented rooms to women looking for lodging. 3 are known by name: Rita Nelson, Kathleen Maloney, and Hectorina McClellan. They were all strangled between January and March of 1953. He used the same story as before, offering help, food, medical advice. He then rendered them unconscious and with gas, strangled them, and then he hid each body in a small alcove behind the parlor wall, covering the space with wallpaper in a cabinet. When police finally opened the alcove, they found Ethel under the floor, and then these 3 women standing upright in the wall space, one behind the other.
That'd be creepy as shit to come across that. Like, creepy as shit.
In March of 1953, speaking of that right there, Christie couldn't pay his rent, so he moved out, taking his belongings and leaving the flat to a new tenant named Beresford Brown.
Okay.
That's a name.
Beresford's got something coming for him.
Brown noticed a smell and a patch of wallpaper that looked recently replaced, and when he pulled it back,
surprise!
He found 3 women stacked.
That'd be horrible.
He called the police, the same police that had once relied on Christie's testimony to convict Timothy Evans, and within days they found Ethel, Ruth, Muriel, Rita, Kathleen, and Hectorina. He was living in that flat for years, surrounded by bodies.
Yeah.
Just everywhere.
Yeah.
No one ever looked close enough to see it either. Neighbors remembered smells, but blamed the plumbing. Here's the deal. I grew up in Arkansas, and I don't know what a dead human smells like,
right.
But I know what dead animals
right.
in the woods and farms and all of that smells like. And it is an extremely distinct smell. There is nothing else that smells like it,
yeah.
including plumbing.
Right.
Although, remember that time that you weren't at the house? I was cleaning out the sink or whatever, and I heard a weird sound, and I turned off the water, and then there was a sink in front of me, which was the kitchen sink, and then there was a sink behind me, which is like a bar sink, and I was leaning over like this, and then I heard a sound, and I was like, oh no, and I jerked my head back, and at the time I jerked my head back, both sinks, a geyser of water shot up and shot back down. It didn't flood any, I mean, it kind of went everywhere, but it didn't flood anything. And then I called you and I was like, ring, ring, motherfucker. The house smells like, and I said a dead body. It didn't really. But then you.
I know what you're, yeah, I knew this is where you're going.
All of this old, it was this 1970s.
It was the old, yeah, it was old pipes, old plumbing.
Cast iron.
Yeah.
There's cast iron pipes in the basement that he could get to, and he cut it open.
Yeah.
He cut the cast iron, and it came down. Oh.
And I was in the backyard, and I don't have a weak stomach, and I was in the backyard going, I gotta clean this out. That's what I was doing, and it was out of any control I had. That was the worst smell. So to your point, that was the worst smell. So yeah, that would remind me as if I smelled something like that, which did not smell like plumbing, even though it was. So multiply that times a dead body. I was going to say multiply that times, magnify that to a dead body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a sulfury kind of smell. Yeah. So I have to wonder why people, like, to be fair, they lived in London. That's a very urban space. Sure. But no. Yeah. Anyways, neighbors did remember Ethel's sudden disappearance, but Christie told them she'd gone to visit relatives. It's fair. Everyone believed him because it sounded like the kind of thing this man would say.
Nice guy would do.
He's a nice guy. After leaving number 10, Christie spent several days wandering London, staying in cheap lodgings and parks. He was essentially homeless, I guess. He was caught on March 31st, 1953, sleeping on a bench near Putney Bridge. I don't know where that is. People of London, check in with us. He just looked up at the officers and said, I suppose you're here about Rillington Place. This cheeky motherfucker.
Indeed we are.
Christie confessed to Ethel's murder immediately, and then 6 more. The details shifted with each telling. He claimed mercy, then panic, then self-defense. He admitted to necrophilia in one statement, and then denied it in another. Even at the end, this truth and performance blurred together. The only thing I'm going to say about the necrophilia part, and this will be quick. Why would you admit to that to be cool and like up your crimes? That's like the opposite of cool. That's like, what?
Yeah, I'm not going to go there.
Like, why would you admit you wouldn't? I mean, I know you wouldn't.
I'm not going to go. I get it because he's crazy.
He was tried for a single murder, Ethel's, because under British law, one capital conviction was enough for execution. The trial lasted 4 days. The jury took 85 minutes to return a guilty verdict. 85 feels
I was going to say
extra.
84 minutes too long.
That's a little too long for this.
Like, do we even have
guy.
to get out of the jury box, guy? Can we just go right to this?
I'd like to take a short little jaunt into the police work here because that's what I like to do. And go back just a little bit to Timothy Evans, and I do not think that the police were out to frame him. They followed procedure to the T. They just trusted the wrong person and missed what was right under their feet.
Sure.
In 1949, obviously, they didn't have DNA. There was no criminal profiling. Timothy Evans was poor, anxious, uneducated, and he fit the idea of guilt better than this calm and respectable guy next door. And I think here the tragedy is that the police were just ordinary. They did not go above and beyond what they could see. They didn't think outside of the box because they followed procedure. They did nothing wrong in this situation. But I think procedurally things were different in 1949 than they are today. I think there's just a completely different approach to policing, investigating, I guess I should say. Instead, why would they dig up the garden? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, there's no reason just because you find bodies doesn't mean you actively look
Right.
for more when
Right.
you've got two right there. Later, when Scotland Yard got involved instead of the Metropolitan Police, they went above and beyond. They got it right. They photographed everything, dug up everything, left no brick unturned. It was meticulous and probably a little penitent for what they missed with the Tim Evans case. Because by then, they knew this was the same location.
Right.
The witness here
Right.
is
Correct.
actually
Right.
the bad guy.
Right.
So they've got the same house and the same clues, and this time, they got the right guy, but they had already hanged a man.
You could just see when they all put two and two together. They're like, wasn't this place? Wasn't he? Son of a bitch.
Oh no. Yeah, that's a pretty heavy moment for the police, I'm
right,
sure. That's very unfortunate because I don't think they did anything wrong.
Right.
Why would they keep looking for more? John Reginald Christie was hanged at Pentonville Prison on July 15th, 1953, and as you'll recall, this was the same place Timothy Evans had died 3 years earlier for potentially crimes that Christie committed. And this is the end of the man at number 10. But for Britain, the nightmare isn't over, because the bodies weren't just a story about a killer. They are showing of a nation so proud of its order and decency that it could miss the monster living next door.
Right.
So where does this take us all? And the cultural impact on this one is a little bit more impactful than other stories that we've told, because when the bodies at 10 Rillington Place were uncovered in 1953, Britain was forced to take a look in the mirror, and it didn't like what it saw. It didn't just see a story about a murderer, it was about the kind of society that let him exist and punish somebody else for his crimes. The immediate shock was not his death toll, it was the name that surfaced with it, which was Timothy Evans, an innocent, possibly innocent man hanged 3 years earlier. On Christie's testimony, public confidence in British justice cracked. Newspapers demanded an inquiry. Parliament debated the case for weeks. The government tried to frame it as a tragic anomaly, but the public saw something deeper, a system that valued appearances over evidence. In 1955, the first official investigation stopped short of clearing Evans, but the pressure didn't fade. By 1966, the Brabin inquiry re-examined the entire record and declared what most already believed: Evans was innocent, and this is his royal pardon. Although it came too late, his case had permanently stained the death penalty debate. Before Christie, British support for capital punishment was strong. Executions were rare but accepted. After Christie, every hanging was looked at with a closer lens. If the courts could kill the wrong man once, how many others had they gotten wrong? When Parliament debated abolition in 1956, MPs invoked Evans' name more than any other. One called it the rope's own indictment. That's good. Well done, sir. The Homicide Act of 1957 narrowed the list of capital crimes. In 1965, the death penalty in Britain was suspended, and in 1969, abolished entirely. Christie did not single-handedly end executions, but his lies helped tip the scale. So I would say that nearly one man's crimes rewrote the law.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Case. Yep.
That's an interesting, fact.
Christie's crimes changed more than the law. They changed how people looked at their neighbors. He was not some stranger in the dark like Jack the Ripper. He was the landlord who fixed the pipes, the man who offered aspirin, the one you'd leave your keys with. In post-war Britain, community was supposed to mean safety. Christie shattered all of that. He turned Notting Hill, which was a crowded, ordinary street, into a lesson how evil doesn't announce itself. and the phrase Rillington Place became a cultural shorthand for hidden rot. The house itself lingered for a little bit. Curious tourists visited, children dared each other to knock on the door, and by the 1970s, the street was renamed Ruston Close, and number 10 was demolished. The city literally erasing what it didn't want to remember.
Yeah.
Of course they did.
Yeah.
It's now a part of a housing complex. There's nothing that marks the spot. I think that's interesting how sometimes the city or the state or whatever tears down places like this that are like monuments of evil, if you will. I think there's something to be said there about the death penalty. And I don't really know where I stand on this. Because I would say before that I 100% believed in capital punishment because I think that some monsters do not deserve to be breathing the same air. The flip side of that is that we are human and we make mistakes. And
Sure.
should we be the ones to make those decisions?
Now or then?
Anytime.
Okay. I was curious about the. Oh, you mean even if they're 100% guilty?
How can you be sure they're 100% guilty
Well-
unless you just saw them do it?
Well, I agree, but I agree because even DNA I'll consider nearly 100%. But now that DNA is around, I mean, which you could teach me more about DNA than I could even begin to speak of.
I mean, just in general, like, here's the deal. First of all, I don't think that DNA is infallible because, I mean, if you found DNA, you can say this is the person that left that DNA, but is this person that left the DNA the person that did
Sure,
the thing?
sure.
Even if we know 100% for sure, that's not how we convict people. It's not based on 100% surety that somebody has crimed. Can we allow humans to decide the fate of another person if you don't know 100% for certain that they did it?
I understand.
Because there are plenty of people that have innocently been put to death.
Of course.
I don't think it's worth it.
Oh. Yeah, I know. You're looking at it from different. I mean, like, meaning, again, you're not against capital punishment if you could be 100%. It's not about the capital punishment. You're wanting to make sure someone is 100% guilty without a doubt.
And you, most of the time, you cannot do that.
Right.
Now, the flip side of that is that I don't think monsters and the monsters of the world, and I'm talking about like Osama bin Laden, Hitler, Ted Bundy, the true horrible evil monsters, which I think are few and far between, should they be allowed to breathe air? No.
Yeah.
But those are the outliers, not the inliers.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I could get creepy, and you'd agree with me. But I could get creepy also is that sometimes I am glad when people are taken care of from the inside.
Are we talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
I wasn't talking about him specifically, but that, when someone, because you run into that a lot of child molesters that are known on the inside to flat out be taken care of because people understand who they are.
Dahmer
Yeah.
is a good, and I'll never cover Dahmer on this because he's too recent, and also his story that's one of those that gives me the super creeps.
Yeah.
Because he did some
Yep.
bizarre things, but Dahmer was beaten to death
Yeah.
with a dumbbell in
Yeah.
prison.
So there's certain things that
And I don't feel
exactly.
sorry
There's certain
for that.
people that are taken care of without going through the death penalty.
I agree. I don't have a problem with that. That sounds bad, doesn't it?
No, it does.
sounds
That's why
bad.
I'm trying to not be too.
I don't want people to
tacky.
die,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
But some people...
But you also didn't want those people to die that they actually killed.
That's very
So,
true.
Yeah.
I was reading something interesting on Facebook today, and Charlie Hunnam, I don't know how to say his last name, I'm sorry. He just recently played Ed Gein on Netflix's Monster series. I read a statement that he made that he didn't want people to sympathize with Ed Gein. And there was some study that came out that people who sympathize with those type of people are putting themselves at risk for having a difficulty empathizing later in life. And I actually don't believe that. I felt so sorry for him, Ed Gein, when he was going through those situations with his mother.
And all that. Yeah.
And he was obviously, he had a low IQ. He had a poor education. He had a very emotionally disturbed mother that emotionally and verbally abused him.
Ruined him, yeah.
And I felt very sorry for him for what he went through. And he had schizophrenia.
Right.
And that's sad and awful. All of this to say is that I don't feel sorry for him later when he did all those bad things, because there have been so many people that have all of those things I just said, and they don't go out and do bad things. I don't feel sorry for them later for what they did. I feel sorry that they went through those moments and had to grow up in those very awful situations.
Yeah.
I think both can be true.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of horrible people. Ted Bundy had a very caustic mother, and he had some not great things happen to him. And then he went off and did some of the most horrific crimes we've ever seen. And I feel sorry for his upbringing. And then, fuck that guy. I'm glad. I don't feel sorry for him that he got the electric chair.
Yeah. Okay. That was a sad angle of the old...
Yeah. I just think there's something to be said that people do. In this situation, a man was put to death, and he probably shouldn't have been.
Right. I'm okay with the death penalty. Do I promote it, or I'm all about it, or scream out? Matter of fact, when there's people on trial and the death penalty, and they're on, I'm never like, yeah, he should be doing it. Actually, I'll go either way with him. Put him to death penalty. I'm like, okay. If they don't, I'm like, I look at it as he's going to hopefully suffer in a small room for many, 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 many years.
Oh.
Now, the biggest problem with death penalty, which is not what you're asking, is that these days...
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You're on death row for eternity. Most people die on death row, not through...
I don't know about most.
Sorry, it's valid. People die on death row because it was delayed and having to be sorted out so long. So at that point, what's it matter?
Because you're guaranteed appeals. Not just one appeal, multiple appeals.
What does it even matter?
I think it's 7.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're guaranteed 7, but you get 7
That part annoys the shit out of me. Because...
That's a lot of money spent.
It is.
That's a lot of money.
So.
I think it would cost less money to just, devil's advocate here, to just abolish the death penalty. If you can still go to prison for life.
Yeah.
And think of all the money you would save not going through all the trials that you're guaranteed.
Yeah. I think we're saying that because I am not against the death penalty. I don't think you're against the death penalty. But the whole bullshit that goes with it, in terms of the money wasted and everything else associated with it, in terms of what it actually takes these days to put a person, to end person's life through the criminal system, I don't know, man. It's a lot.
I feel like the death penalty is more about retribution than justice.
Sure.
I don't think that you get justice with putting another human being to death.
No,
I think you get vengeance.
I'd agree to that.
And to me, that's where the value lies, and that makes me sound very harsh and uncaring. I'm not trying to be, but I do have a very strong sense of retribution and vengeance when horrible things happen. That's it.
That's it.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. This was a long episode. I don't know how long we've been.
That was genuinely interesting. I knew nothing about it, and I think he changed the law.
He changed the law.
Because of his bullshit.
Yep. And I think the lesson here is don't trust anybody. Don't go have tea with your neighbors. Don't sniff out of jars. Don't sniff jars. Even if you buy them on the internet from the fart lady. Don't sniff jars.
Okay.
Don't borrow a dog to take a walk. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. And don't look behind the wallpaper.
Or do. If you need to know.
So that's it for tonight's descent into what the fuck?
There you go.
I meant to say history is what I have written down here. But yeah,
We're back.
we're back, bitches. Look, if you enjoy this podcast or this episode or just us because we're fun and cool, you need to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen or watch your podcasts. Don't watch my TikTok, but also watch my TikToks because I'm terrible at them, and you can laugh at how bad I am at TikTok. I'm not great at social media.
You're great at social media.
I don't like social media.
Yeah.
I like to lurk on social media. I don't like to provide content.
Okay.
It's not my bag. So yeah, if you want more, you can go to patreon.com/house of6 and check out all the weird stuff I post there. I post funny polls, all of the images that I create for each of the episodes, case notes. Yeah, go there. Do it. It's fun. Thanks for listening. And until then, normally I say stay out of the attic, but this time I'm going to say stay out of the alcove. Because you're dead. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
They say 13's the number cursed of broken luck and fate's reverse, but evil's home was further than behind the door at number 10.